Hey, this is Ty with HighByte. I'm one of the sales engineers. Today I'm here to go over a 4.2 feature, our TimescaleDB connector. Timescale is interesting because we could always interface with Timescale using our Postgres connector since Timescale is built on top of Postgres. It extends its partitioning capabilities but catered towards time series use. I'm on the user guide page right now. And most of its properties are the same as our Postgres connector, but if you scroll down to the bottom, we have this create hypertable on the output. So I'll be going over these properties today. And you can have timescale running anywhere. I'm gonna be writing to their cloud. You can do the same since they have a free trial. But these are the connection details which I have copied and pasted over into my intelligence hub. So go to my connections, my timescale connector, and voila, I have it connected here or pasted here. So what's interesting is on the output, so I'll go there. We have this toggle to create hypertables, and those metrics are here. So the partition by is your timestamp column that you're going to want to use to create the partitions, right? Or how to chunk up your tables. And that chunking interval is going to be set here, whether it's going to be minutes, seconds, days, and so on. You can also use an integer if you want to set specific milliseconds, perhaps. The primary key is optional. You don't have to use it, but it might be important if you want to prevent duplicates and so forth, or if you're doing upserts on maybe narrow table format where you're logging individual metrics, because then you might have the same metric publish data on the same timestamp, right? So in order to have something unique, you have your option to set a primary key. So in my demo, I'm going to write out OPC tag data. So I have my OPC connection details that we use throughout our various knowledge base articles. So I'm doing a branch read here where I'm going to write out to a wide table format in Hypertable. So I have a bunch of motors. I'm doing a branch read on motors 1 through 5 and its various metrics. And I'm using templating here on the motor number and range from 0 to 5. And if we go to my pipeline for my Y table and throw debug on, we can see how that data is going to move through. So that read stage, I'm just sourcing my templated input we were just on. So we have that array, right, of motors and its metrics. And I'm going to break that up, the process on each of them. And I want to model it, right, so that I have my standardized structure for my table schema. And I'm adding my timestamp column here, which is date time. And I'm just using the system clock. And then my right block, I'm pointing to my timescale connector. You can set the table name, which can be dynamic if needed. And I'm setting the partition by column, which is the timestamp attribute that I have set. And I'm leaving primary key blank. So if I go back to my timescale explorer, I have my Y table format there. And so timestamp is landing as timestamp with time zone. That's what they suggest. So that's where the date time maps to. And I have my metrics. So if I go to my SQL editor, I can do a select star on that, and I can see those motor asset, whatever their tag values were at a specific timestamp. That's how we're logging it. And my pipeline could be outputting every minute or every second, so that you can have data that's easy to consume and process on. Other example I want to show is doing narrow table output. So I'm doing the same branch read, but in this case, I have metadata turned on because I want to I want to reuse the source tag timestamp whenever this tag was logged, right, or generated in the source system. So for each metric, I'm capturing the TQV, and I'm using the placeholder so that when I read this, I can extract out whatever motors are available. Going back to my pipeline, I'll go to my narrow table pipeline. There's various ways to do this. Just an example, I'm scanning for motors 1 through 7. In my case, I only have motors 1 through 5. So when I parameterize that number into that input we were just on, I'm only going to get 5 results back, which we can see here. And I'm breaking this up to process on each metric individually. And again, I'm going to model here, and I'm going to have my initialization block populated just to extract out the motor, the asset ID number into a motor num. So if we configure that to see what that's like. So we have our primary key attribute where I'm just merging my asset ID with my metric name. And I have that populated here also. And then we have our value and again our timestamp where we're reusing the OPC tag timestamp. So this is what the output, the curated payload looks like, and you can see the key just merges the asset ID and metric type. So on the output, the only difference from before is I'm using that key for my primary key when I'm running the data. So if we go back to this cloud, I have my narrow table, and again, similar timestamp details and so forth. The value is a character type, which you'll see why in a second. And we have our primary key. So going back to your editor, I'll do select star on the narrow table now. And you can see the value is a string type because it merges numeric with character strings. And we have our timestamp, which is our the source system tag time. And then we have our underscore timestamp for when we wrote out to timescale in this case. So this is a quick run through of sending data to timescale, but we're looking forward to hearing back your thoughts. We're interested to hear or learn how you're using timescale. Aaron's doing he demoed in our recent office hours also, so definitely check that out. And Brad has a bunch of articles in our knowledge base. He's our historian and MES expert, so they should be very useful also. And if you're doing more complicated things like writing hybrid tables where you're merging JSON columns with structured relational columns, you can do that also, but reach out to us if you get stuck there. Otherwise, thank you for your time. Yeah.